Okay, so we're going to debate under the motion number 1. This House believes that emissions trading is not a solution. Without further ado, I call the Prime Minister here.
Yes, am I audible?
Okay, test. Am I audible?
Yes, you're very clear.
Okay, thank you. Let me start. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the first speaker of government team. I'm Aziat Ramah, and my second speaker is Ayla Hidayati, and my third speaker is Henry Aryawan. Well, guys, and my second speaker will bring from environmental and social impact. And so and today our motion today is this House believe that emission trading is not a solution. Emissions as a result of burning fossil fuels such as coal, natural gas, and oil, which are dispersed into the air depending on the composition of the fuel and the type and size of the boiler. And the emission trading is a market-based mechanism that allows for the negotiations and exchange of greenhouse gas emission rights. Today, we would like our debate today. Let's talk about emission trading. Trading is not a solution, especially for the developing country. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today emission trading is one of how the country look or take the advantage for economic for their country. But here, I just want to emphasize that the emission trading is not a solution for our sustainable economy. Why? The emission trading, let's say, for example, in carbon trade, it's really unfair trading systems. Why it's unfair trading system? It's because especially for the country, let's see every trading emissions that happened or that do by some countries, every trading emissions, it will make the temperature rise in 2 degrees Celsius every trading. So it will give impact to our climate change, and also of course because of it will no thanks, it will it will give more severe disasters for that countries that doing the trading emissions. So from this view, of course, if we just focus on economic sustainable, so what about the impact, or what about the severe disaster, that more severe disaster that will this emission trading will give impact or bad impact for our country? Because if we just focus on our economic, and we will see or look to how to the other impact that will give more disaster impact for our country, I think, of course, it will give some dangers for the countries, especially for developing countries. So here, the trading emissions is not a solution for sustainable economic. Yeah, here, right now, if we just think about from economic sides and the reasons of trading emission is to keep sustainable economic, but we don't really care about how what is the impact of trading economic. It's like what it's like what I said before, that the trading economic will rise in 2 degrees Celsius in every trading. So the impact of these things, we can imagine if the emissions of the trading emissions will often doing by some countries. Of course, it will give big impact. From small impact, it will bring more, or will bring bigger impact and more severe disasters for that country itself. So here, this how we really believe that the emissions trading is not a solution, especially for our sustainable economic. I think that's. Thank you.
Thank you. The Prime Minister spent 5 minutes and 50 seconds, 5 minutes and 50 seconds. To respond to the case of government, I call the leader of opposition here.
Can I have a moment to have my timer?
Sure. Don't forget to state your preference, your POI preference. Thank you.
Can I have timer now? Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm going to first of all, you can state the POI. Okay, I'm going to start in 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as the first speaker of the opposition side of the house, we do not really understand what the government teams really means, because of with the first thing that they never really give to us is what does the motion mean, ladies and gentlemen. Because first of all, under the motion, this house related emissions trading is not a solution. They never really characterize what does emissions trading mean at the end of the day. So we think emission trading in the status quo happens when in the status quo, UN or United Nations gives quota for nations involved in the agreement. For example, let's say Paris Agreement or Kyoto Protocol, to produce allowed carbon emissions number, ladies and gentlemen. We think that this emissions trading is the strategy to combat climate change by limiting or reducing the number of allowed carbon emissions. In this scenario, certain countries or companies have different emission production, and then some might use their quota to the fullest, and some are not, because they already, let's say that these developed nations are being able to use their quota to the fullest because they already developed green technology or any mechanism to cut their emission. But then the idea of trading happens when there are certain countries that has more spare quota of the emissions left, and there are countries or companies who are in needs more quota of the emission production to operate. Then both can do trading upon their emission quota. We think that that is what emissions trading means, ladies and gentlemen. And before I'm going to move further on my argumentations and what do we really mean, we think that we found that there is no problem in status quo. We think that the status quo is fine because of this emission trading exists in order to at least providing equal position between the developed and developing nations. So we think that our stance as the opposition team is clear. We think that the emission trading is the solution to create bonding between the developed nation and the developing nation. We think that among all of those benefits that exist, we think that it's pretty clear that this is going to be able to create bonding between them. I'm going to move further into the characterization, but before that, several questions and rebuttals towards the government team. Two questions. The first question is, we think that they should answer why then it is this emission trading is not going to be fair at the end of the day. Then that's why they could be able to say that this emission trading is not a solution at the end of the day. And the second question, they need to answer and explain to you why then the idea of developing nation should be accountable for the world's fresh air, ladies and gentlemen, while the developed nation can only be fined by the same regulation that apply to the developing, ladies and gentlemen. And several rebuttals. We think that this points that they only argue by the first speaker of the government team is only she only explaining about the idea of how climate change or carbon emissions is being so dangerous to our environment, how the gas could be very damaging to our environment, ladies and gentlemen. But we need to make it clear to the government team that we are not Donald Trump, who is very skeptical towards climate change, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we do believe that the climate change exists. We do believe that the carbon emission is there and giving bad impact towards our environment. So we think the thing that should be debated is that why the emissions trading could be the solution between the nations, developing or developed nations, or why that it is going to be the solution, ladies and gentlemen. That's the thing that we need to talk under this debate. Several argumentation. First of all, I'm going to give characterization between the involved stakeholders. We think that there are two involved stakeholders. The first one is developed nation. The second one is the developing nation. We think that the first one, developed nation, could be characterized into two things. The first one, we think that this developed nation is the one who is capable to use their the developed nations is the one who are full with industries and factories, and that's why that we could say that this developed nation is the most polluter in our environment in status quo. We think that they are able to use their quota to the fullest. Even they, in certain cases, in most cases, they need more additional quota to be able to extend their operational industries, ladies and gentlemen. So the second characterization is that yes, we are going to acknowledge that this developed nation is also currently developing green technology, for example, like electromobility, and they have that capability. But I'm going to explain why that this is going to be not really exclusive at the end of the day. Second of all, the developing nation, we think that the characterization of developing nation is the first one. They have less industries, and that's why that they have less capability in polluting. Second one, they mostly have green environment and forests, which contribute to provide fresh air to the world. So that's why we think that this developing nation being reliable by the world in order to provide fresh air for the world, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to explain why that the emission trading is the solution, because first, the idea of fairness. I'm going to explain this idea with several layers. First one, we think that developing nations being the vulnerable one. Why? Because of they are being given quota, but they are not able to maximally use it. However, they need to have budget in order to have conservation, because they are being reliable by the world in order to provide fresh air, right? Second of all, we think that the existence of developed nation being the polluter that is going to use their quota to the fullest. We think that they are only going to be depending to the developing nation, while they are only damaging the effort by this developing nation in order to provide fresh air. That's why we think that it is not fair at the end of the day. Even if in the status quo, the nation who are already supervised with quota, for example, they should pay the fines to the organization in Paris Agreement, for example, we think that it is not going to be enough. Why? Because of the same regulation were applied to the developing when they have still not to be able to supervise the limit, right? So even if the government also argue that developing might be able to use the quota to the fullest, it is going to be particular cases. Why not all of this developing able to do it, ladies and gentlemen? And oh my God, yeah, I think what happened if you don't do the emission trading, because of we found that developing nation being suffer. Why? Because of they are the one that being blamed to provide fresh air. Yeah, several things has been explained.
Thank you. The leader of opposition spent 7 minutes and 20 seconds. 7 minutes and 20 seconds. To extend the case of government, I call the Deputy Prime Minister here.
Well, do you listen my hair, Mr. Adjudicator?
Yeah, you're clear.
Okay. Well, before I'm going to my argument, good morning, Mr. Adjudicator, and as the government side of the House of this motion, that this House believe that emission trading is not a solution for a sustainable economic country. Yeah, and as the government side of the House, we very agree about this motion. But before we going to discuss our model, why we very agree on this motion, allow me to give some rebuttal for the first speaker of opposition side of the House. When the opposition side of the House said that's they just think about the benefit of the trading emission for the economic country, but they never this engine, but also for a long time for our next generation. They just think about the good impact for a short time itself, ladies and gentlemen. And so it is our model, like my first speaker said, it's when we continue to trading this emission for a country, it will to be come up the new problem, like the climate itself, like the change climate itself in our country, and burning like a burning, and also in many other new problem in a country itself, ladies and gentlemen, when we continue to the trading emission itself, ladies and gentlemen. So let's move to my argument. Why I very agree about this motion. The question is who can guarantee the emission will be continue for a long time. I think the opposition side of the House very forget about the point. They just think about how many ton they can get for some time, but they don't think about the longer time. Who can guarantee the emission will be there is in our country for long time, not only for short time itself, ladies and gentlemen. So I think it's unless the point of the opposition side of the House itself, ladies and gentlemen. As the government side of the House, we are very agree of this motion when this House believes that emission trading is not a solution for the sustainable economic country. Because the first one, I have two model of this motion. Those are, just because there are many people can't guarantee the emission for a long time. So the emission, it's not good way to sustainable our economic country, right? How we can sustainable economic country to the things which is can't guarantee it's for long term itself, ladies and gentlemen. Because we do believe that many things it's more better to sustainable economic country for our for a country like exploit recycle and many other. Why it's more better than the trading emission itself, ladies and gentlemen. it's because we can increase the economic country, but it can be clear a problem like the environmental side of the countries itself. So like decrease the rabies cases in our country. But let's look what the bad impact of emission trading for a country, not only, no, thank you, not only for a short time, but also for longer term. Why? We very agree, trading emissions, it's very rich for a country because when a country more increase the frequency of the emission itself, it will come up the new problem like dryness, global warming, and others itself, ladies and gentlemen. Like my first speaker said last time, not only what is that? Not only we can add the new cases itself, but also this is the connections. It's for the social impact. Also, when we add when we always trading the emission itself for a countries itself, ladies and gentlemen, because what like my first speaker said, it's a very dangerous for the for the healthy of this country itself, also, ladies and gentlemen, because why? Because when our government and the what is that directly to always trading emissions, it will be at the new problem like the new climate or the dryness for our countries itself, ladies and gentlemen, and it's more urgency than what the benefit itself for a short time itself, ladies and gentlemen. And the question for the of the opposition, I think that's a very unless for the opposition side of the house that they don't have the agency to what is that to increase the nation what is that funded by the trading emission itself, ladies and gentlemen. And not only that, let's look from the what is that from the from the energy and from the environmental our country itself, because you know that the emission itself has many kind like the monoxidous carbon, oxidous nitrogen, and many other, has many has many bad impact for many people, like for the healthy of the social in a country itself, ladies and gentlemen. So when we always and when we continue to the what is that the emission trading, it will be bad impact for the for the healthy of the social countries itself, ladies and gentlemen. So we are as the government side of the house, we are very agree that the trading emission it's more harmful than the benefit for the social country, for the environmental country, and of course for the energy country on short time and for longer time. We don't need to just think about the effect for some time like the opposition side of the house that we can get a funded, but they don't think about the bad impact for their society itself, ladies and gentlemen. So as the government side of the house, we beg to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. The Deputy Prime Minister spent 7 minutes and 50 seconds, 7 minutes and 50 seconds. To respond the case of government and also to extend the case of opposition, I call the Deputy Leader of Opposition here.
Check. All right, so I need several seconds to arrange my paper. All right, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Madam Chair, I'm going to prove you that with our mechanisms, we believe that it will give a higher benefit for all the stakeholders instead of the proposals coming from governments. We believe that by the emission trading's existence, it will give a huge impact, such as, for example, it will keep the sustainability of the global economics, and also by this emission tradings, it will it can give a massive possibility for us to utilize this emissions tradings to support our actions to protect our world. That's I'm going to prove in my arguments, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, before that, let's move to what happened in the government's proposals. They stated that by our mechanisms with these emissions tradings, it will only give us a pragmatic benefit without any sustainability in the progress, and so on. That is me. But what lacks on opposition, what lacks on governments, they also never explain how with their mechanisms it will be better, it will give a huge benefit for the global economics, and also they never explains how it will give a sustainable or a long-term benefit for our world. That is, moreover, we will argue that by their mechanisms, which is without, they are going to abolish, for example, the emissions tradings, it will only hampering the global economics itself. Yeah, and it is also kind of an unfair actions for the developing countries who are striving a lot for our environmental, and there is no sustainability and or long-term benefit coming from government side of the house. That I'm going to prove in my speech. In this speech, I'm going to talk about two things, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, about the comparative, and the second one, I'm going to talk about the long-term benefit. Let's move to the comparatives. I'm going to contextualize what will be happen under their side of the house and under their proposal, and under their proposals. I'm going to prove you why it is really bad to rely on their proposals. Let's say without the existence of these emissions tradings, note that the mechanism is still there. I mean, the Kyoto Protocol or the Paris Agreement punishment is still there, right? We're still giving the quota for every countries in this world where they cannot pass the limit of it, or they will charge by some amount of money in exchange for it. Due to these mechanisms, the benefit is not going to the fullest as we want, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Due to these limitations, what's happened? What's happened then? Due to these limitations, most of the developing countries will stay the same, ladies and gentlemen. They are still likely to never pass the emissions limitations due to their conditions, just like what mentioned by Jagat before, that they are still, most of them are not industrious type of countries, and there are still a lot of rainforest, for example, and rural area which contribute less to the amount of emissions. So therefore, the likelihood to pass the limitations of these emissions, this emission limitation will never be there, ladies and gentlemen. Within this scenario, the only benefit they got is that a form of contributions for a better world by producing less emissions from all of these developing nations, ladies and gentlemen. However, this benefit, we think that it is too small and create no sustainable progress for the future in the end of the day. I will explain it later in my argument, in my second argument. So what is exactly going to happen under the developed nation, ladies and gentlemen? Most of these developed countries or nations are an industrious type of countries, ladies and gentlemen, that they are producing mass of product for the global community, right? Where developing countries are also tendering a lot on this product from the developed countries, ladies and gentlemen. Within these conditions, these developed nations, due to the limitations without the emissions tradings, the developed nations will probably still passing the limits, due to this emission limitations. It seems that the developed nations will be unable to produce as much product as the demand from the global community, because they will got the chart itself. This scenario is very terrible for both developed countries and also developing countries, because the supply chain of global product will be messed. This is the moment that by their mechanism it will hampering the global economic sustainability, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, let's say that these developed nations are going to keep pushing the limits, because they need to do so in order to keep the global chain still exist or sustain. Then they will pay the charge, right? But I'm going to questions to their proposals, where then the sustainability and progressivity that they're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. The developed nations will keep on hampering the earth and having no contribution to the global community, since they are going to produce a lot more product because the demands of society, because we exactly need it. And also by this action, so it will be unfair for the developing countries. Okay, move on. Let's say then that these developed nations are going to pay the charge, right? But there is no clear explanations from the governments how then by paying this charge to the global community will give a benefit for our movement, ladies and gentlemen. There is no clear idea coming from governments. Well, I'm going second one. Why with this emission trading it will be more benefit? I'm going to explain the process how we are going to get the long-term benefit itself. With the emission tradings, both developed and developing countries are going to help each other to protect the earth. How it going to look like? With the emissions tradings, the developed countries will pay for the charge to the developing countries directly in a form of liquid money whenever they are going to buying their quota, when they push the limit itself, ladies and gentlemen. It will be benefit because developed countries will keep on producing the needs of product of global community. So the supply chain will be okay, right? The benefit for the developing countries maybe will be delivered by my third speaker. I'm running out of time.
Thank you. The LO spent 7 minutes and 21 seconds, 7 minutes and 21. To end the case of government, I call the government whip here.
Okay, I audible? Is my
Yes.
voice clear?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, happy audience, ladies and gentlemen. Before I'm going to start my speech, I would like to give my summary battle to the first speaker and the second speaker of the opposite team. First thing first, yeah, the question of the first speaker of the opposite team that asks why, what is it? What happened then when the developing countries trade the emission carbon to the industrial countries, ladies and gentlemen. So what is the effect, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we should to understand that when the developing country trade the emission to the industrial country, it would increase the temperatures of the developing country itself, ladies and gentlemen. So it means that when we sell or when we trade the emission to the industrial country, ladies and gentlemen, we invest. I mean, I say that we invest the disaster. We invest the disaster at the long term, ladies and gentlemen. So it will not really go for the developing country itself, ladies and gentlemen. It will be very dangerous, ladies and gentlemen, for the sustainable economy, ladies and gentlemen. And the second one from the second speaker of the opposite team, he actually want to explain us about his mechanism to protecting the world. But I think here his mechanism is not to protecting protects the world, ladies and gentlemen. Why do I say like that? Because yeah, if we start from our, if we start to if we would like to protect the world, ladies and gentlemen, yes, the industrial country should to decrease the emission that they use, ladies and gentlemen, and the developing country should let we say Indonesia as the developing country, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Indonesia is one of the paru-paru dunia, ladies and gentlemen. So it will very support the world to always keep the good emission, ladies and gentlemen. Let we see. 1 second. Let we see. When we let we see, ladies and gentlemen, when the developing countries should trade the emission, ladies and gentlemen, let me say carbon dioxide, methane, N2O, and each other. Those emission actually is one of the make the disaster impact for the developing countries, ladies and gentlemen. So it is really unfair, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, like what my first speaker actually said, that this really unfair, ladies and gentlemen. So why should the developing countries should to sell or trade the emission to the industrial country, ladies and gentlemen, when the industrial country can also decrease the emission by decrease anything in their country to decrease the emission, ladies and gentlemen. It means that we don't love or we don't want to protecting. It means that the opposite teams mean that they don't want to protect the world, ladies and gentlemen. So what happened, ladies and gentlemen? And next. Okay. Here my point. Here we should to know, we should to understand that when we sell the one unit of the emission, ladies and gentlemen, let me see carbon dioxide. It seem like one. It will increase to derajat Celsius of emission, ladies and gentlemen. So like what I've said before, that when we would like to trade the emission, we invest the disaster for the very long time, ladies and gentlemen, and it will be very dangerous for our country. Maybe that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Government whip spent 5 minutes and 5 seconds to end the case of opposition and also to respond the final case of government. I call the opposition whip here. Iya, coba ya. Hello. Hi. Am I audible? Yes. Salma, can you speak a little bit longer? Oh, yes. It's a bit echoing. It's a bit echoing in your place. Okay.
Oh, is it clear?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. When I know I have a mixer, but I can to make a cake and my friend asked me to buy it because they have bakery and need that mixer. It's better. It's better for me if I sell it to my friend because I will get money and I can buy something. It's more benefit and relate with my interests, right? And that case, it's same when some country do emission trading. Can, such as a country A don't need emission quota anymore, so they sell to country B who need more emission quota to maximize their production. It is kind of win-win solution and give mutual benefit for both country itself. And I will explain next in my argument. Before I go to my argument, I have some rebuttal for the government team. First, government team say that the emission trading it's not a solution, especially for developing country, because it's only make them in the worst condition. But ladies and gentlemen, actually, the government team never explained how it is very unnecessary for developing country. Then we know that it is very benefit. Why I say that? Because with emission trading, the developing country can get payment for country, especially developed country who want to buy the quota from developing country itself. So it is okay, right? And actually, the government team, they only talking about the environment issue. Yes, we do agree about the environment issue, but even without or with emission trading, the production of emission it will be exist, ladies and gentlemen. But the Wait. But with the emission trading, the amount production of the emission itself under control by international organizations such as the Paris Agreement or Kyoto Protocol itself, ladies and gentlemen. So don't worry about the emission itself because there is a control in the very first place. And a second, they talk about the how emission will be erased, but they don't explain us. They don't explain us why in their side the emission will be erased. But in our side, with emission trading, it will we still limit the emission production itself because the control itself what I say that. But what our agency is that the when developed country have demand for of the global society, they should product more production because they should fulfill the necessity of the society, right? So they should maximize the production with the half quota, extra quota from the developed country itself. Then we know developing country have burden to always protect their environment. So it is better when the developing countries sell their quota, then they get payment. So so they can use the payment itself to conserve the environment, ladies and gentlemen. So there is a win-win solution when developed country can fulfill the necessity of society by the production some product, and developing countries still get control how they can protect environment with the conservation from the payment from the developed country itself, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in our side the emission trading it's very as the best solution for the developed or developing country itself because it is mutual benefit for both of country. So, so let's move. My first speaker has told you that why the emission trading is very benefit because we know that every country has different emission production. Like my first speaker said that in developing nation why they need more extra quota because it is the demand from the society and why developing countries justify to sell their quota itself because they have right but they don't they cannot use the quota maximally because the less of production and like the technology or the company, even the industry in the developing country itself. So that is why it will be benefit when we give the quota for developed countries, so they can use it maximally to production the product itself, and developing country get the payment to help them to conserve the environment and to help them to to get income for their sustainable economy. So that is why, ladies and gentlemen, what the relation from the sustainable economy? Because with the emission trading itself, developing country can maximize their production, so the economic will stay grow up and sustainable. And developing country also can get the payment for the from the developed country itself, so it can help us to help our economic condition and to help us to conserve our environment. So this is a sustainable economy and environment will be happen in the emission trading itself, ladies and gentlemen. Then let's see what in government said at the house scenario. There is no clear scenario. They explain us. They said how the emission trading it will protect the world, but I have told you that why this emission trading can benefit for our world. Then the government team never explain how without the emission trading, the economic and the environment issue will be stable and will be handled by developed or developing country itself. And they said it's not fair, but it will not fair in their side. Why I say that? Because without the emission trading, the quota from developing country can be maximized use. Why I say that? Because it will be useless. Then in our side, it is fair when the developing countries sell their quota itself and get payment, and developed country can improve their more production. So there is why, ladies and gentlemen, it's very unfair. So as the opposition team, we believe the emission trading is the best solution for our nation, even developed or developing countries. So I'm back to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now let's proceed to the reply speaker. I call the opposition reply first. He here.
Minta itu timer. Okay. All right. I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, as the opposition reply, we think that this debate has going too much on the opposition. Why? Because of, first of all, under the motion of this house believe that emission trading is not a solution. We believe that the only thing that could touch what does the motion and in line with the motion is only on the opposition side of the house. Why? Because of, we already explained to you why that this emission trading could be very fair at the end of the day for both stakeholders, for the developing nations and also for the developed nations. And we also already argued to you why that this could be very beneficial for both nations, either that it is the developing nations or also the developed nation. And we already explained to you how the comparative of the existence of emissions trading, whether or not the existence of the emissions trading could be very good, or it is going to provide harms at the end of the day. We think that we already explained to you on that ideas. However, let's see what happened on the government side of the house. We acknowledge that they already bring out several ideas, but those ideas only could be credited only if we are debating under the motion that this house believes that emission brings more harm than good, ladies and gentlemen. And we think that when they already argue to you how that, for example, Indonesia is being paru-paru dunia, for example, but we say we already argued to you, we already explained to you why that Indonesia being paru-paru dunia has been the characterization of the developing nations. For example, that we believe that the developing nation is the nations that being being the nations who are having more forests than at the end of the day being that the world being reliable to these developing nations for their forestations in order to provide air for the world, ladies and gentlemen. And the last thing, in their side, when they explain about quota, we think that at the end of the day, the existence of quota will be there anyway, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the thing that they never argue to you, and we think that they are very dismissive at the end of the day. And even if, for example, opposition team should be very kind enough to follow that debate, we think that they are the one who force us to say that climate change could give positive impact, ladies and gentlemen. And they will only provide spiraling debates in which they are only going in the safe area in order to argue how the emission could give bad impact. However, that the oppositions are forced to say that the emissions carbon are being good to the environment, ladies and gentlemen. And we think that through our ideas that we already explained to you, we believe that the idea of fair could be there because the existence of emission trading. Why? Because of the developing nations are going to be able to, we know that in the status quo that they are being reliable to provide fresh air, and also the developed nations are being the polluter. So that's why we think that the idea of paying more in the status quo could be achieved. Why? Because of the existence of emissions trading. At the end of the day, could be there, even if in the status quo that the developed nation should pay more fines if they pass the limits of the quota, ladies and gentlemen. And also through the benefits that we found, both nations could use the function of this quota to the fullest. However, that will not be achieved under the government side of the house. So we think that as the opposition, we are really proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Opposition Whip. He spent exactly 4 minutes. To close the debate, I call the government reply here.
Hello, Mr. Madam Chair, do you hear my voice?
Yes, you're clear.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Madam Chair, I'm as the reply speaker of a government side of the house of this motion that this house believe that emission trading is not a solution for the sustainable economic country. Well, Mr. Madam, in this debate, Madam Chair, because why? The reasons that's the come up of the first speaker of the government instead of the house that the trading emission because the first speaker of the government side of the house has what is that has said the concept the problem like resting the price what's that price the brightness change climate. So it's really so far with the point of view of the opposition side of the house what the trading action it's good impact for the economic country. But Mr. Madam Chair, the government side of the house that the emission trading it's what is that? It's a very harm. It's more harm than the benefit. Like in the end of the day, for the country itself, not only for the economic, but also for a lot of sides in a country itself, ladies and gentlemen. But let's look the opposition side of the house, just a focus of the economic, but they don't think about the impact of the of the other sides when the trading emission is still constitutive for the in a country itself, but we are as the government side of the house always think not only clear up of the economic country, but they always a consideration in other side itself, ladies and gentlemen. So it makes us, as the government side of the house, very agree that the government side of the house, it's a clear up of this motion, ladies and gentlemen. And not only that, the government side of the house say that the trading emission, it's not only way to increase the economic country or to sustainable economic country. They has give you point that many things to increase or sustainable economic country in the world, such as the export bicycle, and it's be better than the than the emission trading in a country itself. Why? Because the second speaker of the government side of the house has explained has explained to you that the bicycle, it's not only give us the benefit for the economic country, which is at the funded of the national increase, the national funded itself, but also it can clear up of the environmental causes like the frequency of rubbish in the countries itself, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a good way from the government side of the house to give you the solution than the emission trading itself, ladies and gentlemen. So it's what is that? So it's make us very agree that the government side of the house is give you the best solution than the trading emission itself, ladies and gentlemen. And the opposition side of the house said they can pass the limit of the something like that when the government side of the house asks them who can guarantee the emissions trading, it can be quality for the long time itself, ladies and gentlemen. But it's unclear fact or that's unclear argument when the opposition side of the house said they can pass the limit because there is no the impact, which is the country or who are can give us the example or the fact of the what's that of the point there is no the people or there is no the country that's the fact that's the fact can to give us that there is the emission can be considered for this country. So we are, as the government side of the house, we very agree that the government side of the house it's more clearly of this motion than the opposition side of the house. Because why? They can say it's not a bad impact for in what's that for a country, but they don't think about the preventive for the social or for the economic for the yes social country or the other side itself, ladies and gentlemen. So we are very agreed. The point of the government side of the house, it's more clearly about this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The government whip spent 5 minutes and 12 seconds, 5 minutes and 12 seconds. So this is the end of our first round of Ecco debate. Thank you very much for all of the debaters. Give me time like around 5 minutes to think about the decisions and also my verbal adjudication. You can stay here for a while. And yeah, please kindly wait. Thank you very much.